in Bhakti Yoga without first understanding what is the absolute truth. Then there's glorification or chanting. One can, for example, in this time, he can use his time for hearing or for chanting, increased chanting, or meditation on the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, remembering Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Vishnu Padasevanam, worshipping the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, Archanam, worshipping in the temple the deity. Someone may say, normally I visit the temple and I do worship in the temple, but now some of the temples are not available to visit. But that doesn't mean that one can't remember Krishna or remember his position as a spiritual being. Just like Krishna told Arjuna on the battlefield, do your duty and remember me at the same time. So sometimes we have to fix our mind on Krishna even when we're not in the temple or there's no possibility of being in the temple. Arjuna wasn't in the temple. He was on the battlefield. Of course he had Krishna on his temple, his chariot. But we also have Krishna in our chariot as the super soul in the heart, Paramatma. So we're not in a different situation than Arjuna. We're also on a battlefield. We're being attacked by different virus, germs, or whatever opponents we have at the particular time. But anyway, Krishna is with us on the chariot. He's the driver. And as long as we take his instructions, then we can progress and cross over victoriously and supersede birth and death in this material world. After all, this material world is certified as a place of suffering. Dukalayam ashashvatam. Abrahma bhuvana loka punar arvatanarjuna. Mamupecha tukonteya punar janmana vidyate. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again in the material world. We shouldn't be too surprised that there's danger here. The Vedic literature informs us, padam padam yad vipadam. This material world is a place where there's danger at every step. And one should cross over this ocean of dangerous living by bhakti yoga, by devotional service, by becoming Krishna conscious. If there's any questions, also anyone here, if they have questions or... Yes?
What's the scientific proof that there is life after death, that we actually go somewhere?
Well, we have to consider what death is. Death means changing body. Because the soul is riding in a particular body, but that, for example, the body that one had when he was a little infant or even an embryo, where are the cells of that body? They're distributed somewhere throughout in the universe, but they're not here now. The body I have today does not have any of the same cells that it had years ago. I've already changed body. Even medical science concurs and says that every 7 years all the cells are changed, completely changed. So even taking that view, if you're 21 years old, then you've changed at least 3 completely different bodies. 3 total changes. But you're the same person. So what is it that remained the same? Not the body, and no part of the material body. Something is the same that is not material, and that's the soul, that's the spirit. So with a little thinking, a little contemplation, we can understand. When we say, this is my arm, this is my leg, this is my head, this is my heart, who's the owner? We don't say, I arm, I head. We don't say, I body. We say, my body. So who's that owner of the body? Who's the owner of the mind? We don't say, I mind. We say, my mind, my intelligence, my ego. So even the subtle parts, we don't identify as ourselves. We say, my ego, my mind, my intelligence. So changing the body does not destroy the living entity, the soul. And the proof is that we've already gone through so many different bodies in this lifetime. The most graphic example is when we were first conceived by our mother and father. On the first night after conception, the body was like a little pea. But I was in there, and you were in there. That body doesn't look anything like this body. That body weighed maybe an ounce. Now your body weighs many pounds. So, if you lived through those changes of bodies, why can't you live through another change of body? Yes?
Somebody asked, what do we make in our thought?
Say that again from the beginning.
Someone asked, what do we make in our thought when we see devotees leaving their bodies because of the virus? How is Krishna protecting devotees?
Krishna is taking them back to Godhead. We don't see that anything in the material world is good or bad. We see that everything that's used in Krishna's service, that becomes valuable. So if a devotee has utilized his time, his words, his body, iha yasya harer dasye karmana manasa gira nikilasvapi avastasu jivan muktasu uchite. Then when it's time to give up the body, he's already surrendered his life to serving Krishna. He's glorious. That's the perfection of life. We can't make this body last forever. So sometimes, now someone may say, that may be very nice if one was a pure devotee. Oh, in a minute. If one was a pure devotee and he leaves his body, then he can go back to Godhead. But what about someone who's just a neophyte? And he's not ready, he's not pure yet. Then he also gets promotion. There was one devotee in 1971, and he was serving in our community in Portland, Oregon. He was a professor at a university. He was actually from a Muslim background, but he became a devotee of Krishna. And he went down to Los Angeles when Prabhupada was visiting there, and he got initiation from Srila Prabhupada. Then he came back to Portland, and shortly afterwards he was killed in a car accident. So we wrote to Srila Prabhupada, and we told him, and Prabhupada said, no one should be disturbed. Actually, Krishna has given him a promotion. He was protected. He took shelter of Krishna. He'll get his next life in a very good devotee's family. He'll be born in a good devotee's family, and he'll continue on the path of pure devotional service. So even if one is not complete, still he gets a good opportunity in the next life. And if he has become purified by devotional service, then he goes directly back to Godhead to join Krishna, where Krishna is appearing in some universe where he gets further training and association with Krishna. So there's no loss. Neha bikramana shosti pratyuvayana vijite svalpamapyasya dharmasya trayatema tobayat. In this endeavor there's no loss or diminution, and a little advancement can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. Is that okay? Go ahead.
Another question is, I've heard people say things recently like fear is a good thing. The news cycle is pumping out fear 24/7, and people feel like they can't escape the news, and they start to become addicted to fear, it seems, which creates a vicious cycle effect. Should I avoid the news cycle? And does Krishna want us to avoid fear at all costs?
No. It's important to understand what's going on in the world. And we should have some fear of this material energy. Not fear only of danger to my body, but the main fear the devotee has is that I might forget Krishna, or I might fall down into the material energy. That type can be healthy. But it's true that one shouldn't become so absorbed in the material situation and forget Krishna, as he was saying, or she was saying. That too much fear and forgetfulness of Krishna is not healthy. Therefore, we have to regulate our day so that we don't forget Krishna. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, the Vedic literatures, chanting, the names of Krishna, honoring prasadam, spiritual food. These things are essential, and everyone can do them. Whether you're living in a... Maybe we should turn this down just a little. Whether one is living in a temple environment or a community of devotees or somewhere else, he can do that. He can take some quality time for hearing about Krishna, the absolute truth, or chanting, or taking prasadam.
Are epidemics like this strictly a quality of Kali Yuga, or have events like this occurred in previous ages?
The material world is fraught with all kinds of difficulties, beginning with death, old age, disease, and rebirth. So this has been going on eternally. As long as there is the material world and a living entity is coming into the material world to try to enjoy himself separately from Krishna, then he will have to face the miseries of material life. Even Brahma lives a very long time, but he has to die. And there's some fear of death until one's completely self-realized. Still there's some fear of death, some attachment to this material body. At this time, we have the coronavirus, but in previous times, we had the Hiranyakashipu virus. Hiranyakashipu was a asura who exhibited his demoniac regime all over the universe, and everyone was affected. Sometimes leaders, kings, dictators, they mislead the people so much that they stop all the sacrifices, they stop all devotional practices, all spiritual practices. That's also a disease. And such regimes certainly have pestilence and natural disasters. These are karmic reactions. So we may think that this is an extraordinary event for human society, but we're not the only species in the universe. There are 8,400,000 species in the universe. And each one has got its catastrophes. There was a forest fire a few months back in Australia, burnt thousands of acres, and millions of animals lost their lives. It was a catastrophe. In slaughterhouses every day, animals are mercilessly butchered. And there are wars. Now we have an epidemic. In the last 4 months, we've had several thousands of people died. But in wars, millions of people die. Famines. This is the material world. We have to expect that these types of things are going to be here. And we should make a solution so that we don't come back birth after birth and go through these difficulties. We should make a permanent solution by giving up our attachment to living in the material world and trying to enjoy material senses. The alternative is to live in the spiritual world with Krishna and engage in devotional service. That's the real solution. That's the only solution. As long as we remain in the material world, even if we go to the heavenly planets, relatively speaking, we may have longer life and relatively less suffering, but it's still temporary. A ratio, if the ratio is 10 over 1, or if it's 100 over 10, still the ratio is the same. There's suffering everywhere in the material world. It may be a little longer or a little shorter, but everyone has to face suffering.
We have another question. Should devotees continue their service during this crisis?
They should continue devotional service. There may have to be some adjustment due to circumstances, just like it's a little difficult to distribute books right now because it's not legal to do so. But those whose service is to do that, they can engage in a way to, as one book distributor put it, sharpen his axe by studying, doing things that maybe he didn't always have time to do, or performing, as another devotee suggested. There's so many people we meet who have the books. We have distributed over 500 million books in the last 50 years, Srila Prabhupada's books. There are many books out there. So, and some people have them in their homes. We can encourage them to read them, and we can try to help them understand. We can follow up with them, give them encouragement and instruction. Or, for example, someone might have been thinking, well, it sure would be nice to do some agricultural service, but I'd never have time. It's like I was thinking it'd be nice to grow some flowers for the deities, but when you can buy flowers or get flowers inexpensively, then we think it's easier to do that. But in this case, if there's no flowers easily available, then it's an encouragement. We can grow our own flowers. And maybe we should even grow some of our own food, because we don't know where the food supplies, what's going to happen to that. So this can become a positive thing for simple living, natural living, self-sufficiency. We might have to think twice. Maybe it would be good to have some land and cow, grow some food. So things can be taken in a positive way. But we should engage in service. The service may, from time to time, be shifted. We can take guidance from the senior devotees how to do that. Just like Arjuna on the battlefield, Arjuna's service was a difficult one. He had to fight against a very big army with the great warriors. And at one moment he's being attacked with fire weapons, then hurricane weapons, then celestial weapons, then Brahmastra weapons, then lances and elephants trying to trample him. So he had to be adjusting at every moment how to perform that service for Krishna's pleasure.
Sapana Dixit asks, if a devotee is in a coma on a ventilator, he's not to remember Krishna at the time of death, will he still go back to Godhead?
That's up to Krishna. Krishna is the ultimate decider. Once, in commenting on the Ishopanishad, there's a verse there where the devotee says, please remember all that I have done for you. The devotee is reminding Krishna that I've served you. And so Prabhupada commented that it's not necessary to remind Krishna all that we've done for him. He remembers. And generally the criterion is that yam yam vapi smaram bhavam chajitante kalivaram tam tamevaiti konteya sadata dvava bhavata. Whatever one remembers at the time of leaving the body, to that state he attains without fail. But even if a devotee somehow or other forgets Krishna, Krishna doesn't forget him, Prabhupada said. So there's nothing to fear. But if we practice remembering Krishna throughout our lives or through the last portion of our life, then our position will be secure and blessed. A devotee is always protected. Konteya pratijanihi name bhaktya pranashati. Prabhupada said that Krishna makes it scientifically possible for a devotee to remember him at the time of death. A devotee is always in an auspicious condition. We read in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is explaining at the different times, leaving the body, one does or does not come back. If he leaves in the dark fortnight, in the period where the sun passes to the south, Dakshinayana, then he comes back. And if he passes at another time, that's an auspicious time, he gets liberation. But Prabhupada makes it abundantly clear in the purport that a devotee doesn't have to worry about leaving at an auspicious, so-called auspicious or so-called inauspicious time, because he's engaged in devotional service. Krishna is not ingrateful. He's not ungrateful. He appreciates the service that's been rendered by the devotee, and he protects him in all circumstances. Yes?
I don't know what book it was in, but I heard that any devotional service performed before someone is initiated, it doesn't really count. And I was wondering about that.
Oh. Certainly it counts, because it's called Porous Chara. The Porous Chara. The activities before initiation are preparation. And The chanting of Hare Krishna is effective. There's no hard and fast rules to the chanting. It does count. You can see it counts on the Sankirtan newsletter. Sometimes uninitiated devotees, they're distributing thousands of books. Krishna knows that, appreciates that. They're chanting. One can chant Hare Krishna whether he's initiated or not initiated, and Krishna appreciates. So, no, it definitely counts. All these, everything that one does for Krishna is eternally beneficial. That doesn't mean that one shouldn't strive to become qualified to take initiation, but certainly those activities are very valuable, and they help him make spiritual progress. He's becoming purified.
So this is a question that has to do with this calamity. Some might say that they wouldn't want to attribute something, some catastrophe like this to God's doing, that they don't want to put that on him. So what's our, how does this kind of work out? Is Krishna sending this virus now for us to deal with?
Well, Krishna is the source of everything. If we understand Krishna correctly, we understand that nothing happens without his will. That everything is generated from him, everything is maintained by him, and everything is consumed by him at the end of a cycle of the material energy. So, again, there's no such thing as death for the soul. So, what we consider to be a major catastrophe is simply a change of dresses for the souls. And the system is that as long as one wants to act on the material platform, then the rules of the material world are the law of karma, that everyone is responsible for their own actions. And if they obey the laws of dharma, Sanatana Dharma, eternal occupational duty, then they are elevated and they get positive results. And if they disregard the laws of nature or the laws of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then they have to undergo some punishment. But punishment is not a bad thing. If you consider any civilization or society, there is a government, and the government has established laws not just to punish people or to cause them harm, but it's actually to make it nice for everyone. People shouldn't steal from others. People shouldn't be violent to others. People should drive carefully. People shouldn't do this and that. That's actually for the well-being of all the citizens. The criminals may object. Why these police came, they put me in the car, they put me in the jail, now I'm serving time. All I did was steal someone's car or kill one or two people. What's the big thing? So the government is not bad because it inflicts some punishment on the wrongdoers. Their real purpose is not to cause suffering, but to rectify them so that they'll become free from that tendency to act improperly. And then, when they have become rectified, then they're allowed to live in the free society again. So on one hand, the sufferings we're getting are due to our own activities, our own reactions, karma, and we cannot hold Krishna or nature responsible. But if you want to look at it that ultimately God is permitting this, or nature is permitting, then see the whole picture. It's for punitive as well as rectification. And if one doesn't like the sufferings of the material world, then he has something he can do. Krishna says, yes, it's not meant for us to live here. So why don't you come back to the spiritual world and live with me? So why don't we take Krishna's advice and give up our attachment to this place, trying to lord it over material nature?
Another question on here, someone asked, is should a devotee try to protect himself from the coronavirus, or should he just ignore the prevention steps and depend on Krishna?
No, do both. Don't ignore the prevention, but don't forget Krishna either. Don't become so absorbed in trying to protect yourself that you forget that Krishna is the only protector. So do both. Devotional service is practical. Srila Prabhupada was not very much interested in taking a lot of different medicines and precautions and things, but he took some precautions. He certainly took precautions. Sometimes he wouldn't depart for a journey on Thursday afternoon because it's considered an inauspicious time to begin a journey. Sometimes he'd put it off till another day. He was cautious about his eating, therefore he ate only Krishna Prasadam. He took a walk every day. You know, he had heart attacks on his way over to America. And one doctor said, you need more exercise. Take a walk. So from that point on, he said, okay, now take a walk every day. And he attributed his walking, his massage, he took a massage generally daily. That wasn't just for sense gratification. That was, he explained it, that when the body gets older, the airs in the body, according to Ayurveda, they don't work, they don't go properly. So by massage, it gets the airs going in the proper way, and it's good for health. So he did that every day. He took 2 or 3 baths daily. Generally 3. Keep clean. Disease is caused by 3 things. He told us: anxiety, uncleanliness, and overeating. So he was careful not to overeat. He was careful to keep clean. But these things are also conducive for Krishna consciousness. In other words, Krishna consciousness is the best means of preventative care for disease and everything, anxiety, uncleanliness. Krishna consciousness is such a complete, holistic science and practice that it's the best preventative measure. As you were saying, people become overwhelmed by depression. They become, or fear. Someone was asking about fear. But fear is based on ignorance. If one knows that he doesn't die, and he knows that Krishna is in control of everything, and if he knows his future is bright because he's going to continue with devotional service, what's there to fear? Yes.
Noah Logan asked, how are we to respond when non-devotees question our motives in this panic? I've been asked by a few people, well, what are the Hare Krishnas doing to help sick and the dying? What are they doing to stop the virus? Wrongfully implying that we are simply carrying on about our business and service with no regard to the world as it suffers.
I think devotees around the world are making many plans how to help the others who are suffering by distributing prasadam. I know that there are many temples already who are organizing mass prasadam distribution. So that's one way. And you can tune in to the devotees giving talks about how to have peace of mind even in these difficult times. That's valuable. We're doing that. Even right now we're doing that. And devotees are giving classes. We have online education. Just as the universities have not stopped educating, they just do it online now. So we also have many online facilities for distributing transcendental knowledge and education. This may be a good time for people to take the opportunity to learn more about themselves and spiritual things. Before they thought they were too busy, they didn't have time. Now they have more time. So they can use it. And we have our farm communities. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness has many farm communities, and they've been producing food and practicing simple living, high thinking. That's a good example to show the rest of the world that we don't need to live a life dependent on eating flesh and causing violence to others. We can live a simple life, grow our own food. We don't need big factories. We don't need these mega cities. These are not conducive for spiritual advancement, for the purpose of life. The Krishna Consciousness movement is showing that. And the devotees are going on with their practice of chanting and serving Krishna in all circumstances. That's very healthy for the world. Everyone gets the benefit. When the sacrifice is performed, the sacrifice that's recommended for this age is a Harinam Yajna, Sankirtan Yajna. And that is being conducted by the Krishna conscious devotees. They're chanting holy names. I just received today a notice that some of our senior devotees are organizing 24-hour kirtan going on all over the world, so that there's chanting going on in every part of the world at every moment. That's a nice service for the rest of the people, because they can also participate in the Sankirtan movement by the association of devotees. And the service that the devotees are rendering to Krishna, that's what human life is meant for. Yes? Yes?
So, we talked about having some healthy fear of the material energy, and we also talked about how this anxiety was one of the causes of disease. If one is feeling very fearful of the material, is there some phenomenon where he feels like he can't do his devotional practices? And what, I guess I'm wondering how to balance the...
Bhaja Hare Mana Shinandanandana Abhaya Charanadavindore. The devotee prays to Krishna, please let me take shelter of your fearless lotus feet. So as we may feel fear in this material world, but if we take shelter of Krishna's lotus feet, there's no more fear, because he's feared by fear personified. He's the supreme unconquerable. Time and the material energy are working under his direction. Yamaraj is his devotee. Yamaraj is in charge of death. So, if we use fear as an impetus for us to take shelter of Krishna's lotus feet, then that's favorable, that's positive. But at Krishna's lotus feet, Abhaya Charanadavinda, there's no fear there, because no one can harm us. As we increase our attachment to Krishna, then we'll become more and more fearless. Naturally, we're fearful because we're forgetting Krishna. We're thinking that there's two. But ultimately, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, everything is Krishna. Once when Srila Prabhupada was in India, a man was interviewing him for a newspaper, and there was a blackout siren because there was an impending war between Pakistan and India. And the man who was interviewing said, "What do we do now in this terrible circumstance? What happens if the bombs come?" And Prabhupada said, "If the bombs come, then we think Krishna has come in the form of this bomb to take me back to Godhead. So there's nothing to fear."
Another question we have on here is, even if I chant in my own room, will it benefit others? What else can I do as my part to give others relief from this trying times?
Yes, chanting in your room will help. Every vibration, every sound vibration that's produced goes around the universe 7 times. So it's there. Just like when you have a radio vibration, it's out there. If someone has the frequency, they can pick it up. So your chanting is on a very high frequency, and those who are fortunate enough to be able to tune into that frequency, they'll benefit. That's why physical proximity with the spiritual master or with Krishna is not the most important thing. Physical proximity. One can be with Krishna who lives in Gokula, Goloka Vrindavan, Goloka eva nivasatya kilatma bhuto. But he's present everywhere. He's in every atom also. He's in everyone's heart. So yes, there are many things that we can do to help the Sankirtan movement, but certainly chanting is required at least 16 rounds for our own spiritual benefit, and then as much as possible, for example, now you can chant on the internet. The person who asked that question, he obviously knows how to use the internet. He can broadcast his chanting, and many people can benefit by chanting with him. That's just one idea. I think he can also go outside and chant if he wants. I don't think that's illegal yet. You can chant outside a little bit. Just don't get too close to people. You have to have a little microphone or strong voice. Yes? Question here.
As devotees of Krishna, we wear Tulsi to represent our devotion to Krishna, but also for protection now and also at the time of death. So would it benefit us, or would it benefit a non-devotee to wear Tulsi, especially when they're going through their last days in their body?
Yes.
And how so?
Because Tulsi is auspicious. She's a pure devotee, Krishna's favorite tree, and she's pure in all circumstances. Even tilak. In the Sri Garga Samhita, there's a description about wearing tilak, how persons, Gopi Chandan, get benefit by having it on their body, and Tulsi, touching Tulsi. We say that in the morning. By seeing Tulsi, by watering Tulsi, by touching Tulsi, by circumambulating Tulsi, one gets inestimable value. So yes, that's nice. It's a culture. The Vedic culture is all meant to help everyone make elevation, go back to the spiritual world, and get free from this cycle of birth and death. So everything we do can be oriented around Krishna. We like to wear necklaces, so okay, wear a Tulsi necklace. Or we like to sing songs, so okay, chant Hare Krishna, chant some other devotional songs. We like to eat Krishna prasadam. We like to have exercises, dance for Krishna. So in every sphere, Krishna consciousness is applicable.
This one's a comment and a question, if there's time.
I think should we take this last question, or? This will be our last question.
Okay. This person, he says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Is there any explanation in the scriptures on how these adidaivikam forms of suffering, even though they appear miserable, can facilitate the coming age of golden age of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, where conditions are most favorable for spiritual progress? And he says, to clarify, the scientists and Vaishnavas alike have traced the cause of this virus to animal slaughter. Perhaps these can show us the error of our ways.
Yeah, that's a good point. Those who are educated in this field should use their energy to point out this mistake. They should write letters, make political activity, reform that we should stop the slaughter of animals. So in that sense, it would be very helpful. There was one devotee in Israel. He was an attorney, and it so happened he lived in the Tel Aviv area, and there was one part of city of Tel Aviv that the mayor, for some reason, was not able to perform his duties, so they had to appoint a temporary person to oversee that precinct of the city, and this lawyer was appointed. So he had to oversee that government for the period of time until the next election. So he got in, and it turned out that there was a slaughterhouse in his precinct. So he did all kinds of research and made all kinds of arrangements, and before his term was up, he arranged to have the slaughterhouse closed down. So he used his abilities, his intelligence, his education, his influence, in a way to do something positive for the whole city and for everyone. So yes, we can do that. We can take these reverses and use them in a positive way for spreading the Sankirtan movement. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.